I wasn't supposed to see the bank statement. It came to my house by mistake, addressed to my daughter Jessica, but with my old address still in the system, I almost threw it away without looking. But something made me pause. Maybe it was the official letterhead. Maybe it was just instinct. Whatever it was, I'm glad I listened to it. I opened the envelope. Inside was a statement for an account I didn't know existed. Chase Bank. Account number, ending in 7,743. Registered under Jessica Marie Castellano. My daughter's name. And there, listed in neat columns, were deposits, monthly deposits. Every single month for the past 3 years. $6,500. $6,500. $6,500. 37 deposits in total. I counted them twice. In the memo line, the same 2 words repeated over and over. Beach rental. I sat down at my kitchen table and stared at that statement for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking. My mind was trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Trying to find an innocent explanation. But there wasn't one. Because 6 months ago, my daughter told me she'd sold our family beach house. The house at 2247 Pacific Coast Highway. The house where my wife Elena and I spent every summer for 32 years. The house where Jessica learned to swim, where we celebrated her college graduation, where Elena spent her final good summer before the cancer took her. Jessica said she sold it to pay for Elena's funeral expenses and medical bills. She said it broke her heart, but we had no choice. She said the sale had been complicated, tied up in probate and estate issues, but it finally went through. She cried when she told me. I held her hand and told her I understood. That her mother would have understood too. I never asked to see the paperwork. Why would I? She's my daughter, my only child. But according to this bank statement, there was no sale. According to this statement, Jessica had been collecting $6,500 in rent every single month for the past 3 years. That's $240,500, $250,000 that should have been mine. That should have been ours. I need to back up and explain how we even got here. Because the beach house wasn't just any property. It was the foundation of everything Elena and I built together. When Elena and I got married in 1989, we had nothing. I was working as a junior architect at a small firm in San Diego. She was teaching 2nd grade at an elementary school in La Jolla. Between us, we made maybe $45,000 a year, but we had a dream. We wanted a place by the ocean, somewhere we could escape to on weekends, somewhere we could eventually retire. In 1991, we found it. A small, rundown beach cottage in Carlsbad, about 40 minutes north of San Diego. The place was a disaster. The roof leaked, the plumbing was shot, half the floorboards were rotted through. But it was 50 yards from the beach, and the price was right. $185,000, which was every penny we could scrape together for a down payment and closing costs. We bought it. And then we spent the next 5 years fixing it up ourselves. Every weekend, every vacation day, every spare moment. I rebuilt the deck. Elena refinished the floors. We retired to the bathroom together, working by candlelight when the electricity went out. Jessica was born in 1993, and some of my favorite memories are of her toddling around that beach house in a sun hat, chasing sandpipers, building castles, while Elena and I worked on renovations. By 1996, the house was beautiful. Not fancy, but solid and charming. We'd put our hearts into it. And then the California coastal real estate market exploded. Between 1996 and 2010, property values in Carlsbad went absolutely insane. That little cottage we bought for $185,000 was suddenly worth over $1 million. By 2015, it was valued at $2.3 million. By 2020, comparable properties in our neighborhood were selling for close to $4 million. We never planned to sell. It was our family home, our sanctuary. But Elena got sick in 2021. stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She fought for 18 months, and those medical bills, even with insurance, were astronomical. We burned through our savings. We took out a second mortgage on our primary residence in San Diego. And when Elena passed away in March of 2023, I was drowning financially and emotionally. That's when Jessica stepped in. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Trust me, you won't believe what happens next when I discover the full extent of what my daughter has been hiding. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to light. Jessica was 31 years old when her mother died. She'd always been ambitious, driven. She got her MBA from USC and went into commercial real estate. She married a guy named Derek who worked in private equity. They lived in a beautiful house in Newport Beach and drove matching Tesla SUVs. On the surface, they were the picture of success. After Elena's funeral, Jessica sat me down and went through my finances with me. She showed me spreadsheets, debt calculations, and interest projections. She made it clear that I was in serious trouble. "Dad," she said, holding my hand across the table, "you're going to lose the San Diego house if we don't do something. The second mortgage payments are killing you, and you've got another $140,000 in medical debt from Mom's treatment." I knew she was right. I'd been avoiding looking at the numbers, but they were staring me in the face now. "What do you suggest?" I asked. "The beach house," she said quietly. "We need to sell it." My heart sank. That house was the last piece of Elena I had left. But Jessica kept talking, kept showing me numbers, kept explaining that it was the only way to save my primary residence and pay off the medical debt. "I know it's hard, Dad," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "It's hard for me too. That house is full of Mom's memories. But she wouldn't want you to lose everything. She'd want you to be stable, to be okay." She was right about that too. Elena was always practical. So I agreed. I signed power of attorney documents, giving Jessica the authority to handle the sale. She said it would be easier that way, since she understood real estate and could navigate the process. She said she'd take care of everything. "I'll make sure you get the best price," she promised. "And I'll handle all the details so you don't have to stress about it." The whole thing took about 4 months. Jessica would call me with updates. "The market was tricky," she said. "Buyers were hesitant because of interest rates, but she finally found someone willing to pay $3.2 million for the property. It seemed low to me. I'd seen similar houses listed for more. But Jessica explained that those were listing prices, not selling prices. She said the market had cooled, and $3.2 million was actually a strong offer. I believed her. She said after paying off the remaining mortgage on the beach house, the realtor fees, the taxes, and various other expenses, we'd clear about $2.1 million. She'd use that to pay off all my debts, and I'd have about $800,000 left to invest for retirement. It sounded reasonable. It sounded like Jessica was taking care of me. Then, about a month before the supposed sale was finalized, she called me crying. "Dad, I have bad news," she said, her voice breaking. "There's been a complication with the estate. Mom's medical creditors filed a lien against the beach house. It's a mess. Legal says it could take another 6 months to sort out, and there are going to be additional fees." I felt my stomach drop. "How much in fees?" "Could be substantial," she said. "Maybe another 100, 200,000. I'm fighting it, Dad, I promise. But this is what happens when estates get complicated. More delays, more costs." I felt helpless, but Jessica assured me she was handling it. She was my daughter. I trusted her. Finally, in September of 2023, she told me the sale had gone through. "It's done, Dad," she said. "The house is sold." I felt a wave of grief wash over me, but also relief. At least my debts would be paid. At least I wouldn't lose the San Diego house. "After all the fees and the lien settlement, you'll clear about $450,000, Jessica told me. "I know it's less than we hoped, but it's enough to pay off everything and give you a cushion." $450,000. down from the $800,000 she'd originally projected. I was disappointed. But these things happen, with estates and legal complications. Or so I thought. Jessica transferred the money to my account in October. My debts were paid. I had about $180,000 left over, which I invested in a conservative retirement fund. I mourned the beach house. I mourned Elena. But I was grateful. My daughter had taken care of everything. And then, 5 months later, that bank statement showed up at my door. Beach rental, $6,500 per month. 37 payments. She never sold the house. She'd been renting it out. For 3 years. I sat at my kitchen table with that statement in my hands, and I did the math over and over, hoping I was wrong. If Jessica had been collecting $6,500 per month for 37 months, that was $240,500 in rental income. But the statement showed the account balance at $267,830, which meant there was additional income I wasn't seeing in this single statement, or she'd been depositing other funds into the account as well. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was realizing that Jessica had started renting out the beach house while Elena was still alive, while my wife was dying of cancer. While we were burning through our savings to pay for her treatment, Jessica had access to the beach house. We'd given her a key years ago. She'd go there sometimes on weekends. I thought she was just visiting, keeping an eye on the place for us. But she wasn't visiting. She was running a rental operation. She must have listed it on VRBO or Airbnb. She must have been coordinating cleanings, managing bookings, collecting payments, all while telling us she was just checking on the house for us. And then, when Elena died, and I was vulnerable and grieving and financially desperate, Jessica saw an opportunity. She convinced me to sell. She convinced me to give her power of attorney. She showed me fake documents, or maybe real documents that she manipulated. She fabricated stories about liens and legal complications and market conditions. I need you to stick with me here, because what I discovered next will blow your mind. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on, because this story takes a turn that even I didn't see coming. I didn't confront her right away. I needed to know more first. I needed to understand the full scope of what she'd done. The next morning, I drove to the beach house in Carlsbad. I hadn't been there since Elena's funeral. Jessica told me the new owners had taken possession, and I didn't want to see strangers living in our family home, so I'd stayed away. But now, I needed to see it with my own eyes. I parked across the street and watched the house. It looked exactly the same. Same blue shutters Elena and I had painted. Same flower boxes she'd loved. Same white fence I'd rebuilt in 2018. I sat there for 2 hours. At around 11 a.m., a couple came out with beach bags and towels. They looked like they were in their 50s, relaxed and happy. They locked up the house and walked down toward the beach. Renters, current renters in my house. I waited until they were out of sight. Then I walked up to the front door. I still had my old key on my keychain. I'd kept it out of sentiment, not thinking I'd ever use it again. I slipped it into the lock. My hand was shaking. The key turned. The door opened. Inside, everything was different and exactly the same. The furniture was gone. Our furniture. The pieces Elena had carefully chosen over the years. Replaced with generic rental furniture. Beachy, impersonal stuff from Wayfair or IKEA. But the house itself was unchanged. The same layout. The same view of the ocean from the living room windows. The same creaky floorboard in the hallway that I'd never quite fixed. I walked through slowly, my heart breaking with every step. In the kitchen, there was a binder on the counter, a rental binder. "Welcome to Paradise Cove Beach House," the cover said in cheerful script. Inside were instructions for guests. How to work the TV, where to find extra towels, what day the trash gets collected, Wi-Fi password, emergency contacts. And there, listed as the property manager, JC Coastal Rentals, Jessica's company, or at least a company she'd created. I took photos of everything with my phone. The binder, the rooms, the rental furniture. I needed evidence. Then I left before the renters came back. I drove home in a daze. I couldn't believe what I'd seen, what Jessica had done. But I still needed more information before I confronted her. That evening, I called my friend Robert. He's a real estate attorney, someone I've known for 20 years. I trusted him completely. "Robert, I need your help with something," I said. "And I need you to keep this confidential." "Of course, Tom. What's going on?" I told him everything. The bank statement, the beach house, Jessica's lies. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Tom," he finally said, "this is fraud. What Jessica did is serious financial fraud and elder abuse." "Elder abuse? I'm only 63. Doesn't matter. She exploited your grief and vulnerability to steal your assets. That's textbook elder financial abuse. And it sounds like she forged documents or at least misrepresented legal facts to you. This could be criminal." My stomach turned. "I don't want to send my daughter to prison." "Robert, I understand. But you need to protect yourself. Let me do some digging. Can you send me the property address and Jessica's information?" I sent him everything. Over the next week, Robert worked his magic. He pulled property records, searched business filings, and looked into the supposed sale. What he found was damning. The beach house at 2247 Pacific Coast Highway was still registered in my name. There had been no sale, no title transfer, nothing. The power of attorney documents I'd signed gave Jessica authority to manage the property, but not to sell it without my explicit consent on the final paperwork. She'd used that authority to set up a rental business instead. She'd created JC Coastal Rentals as an LLC in Delaware, a state that allows anonymous business registration. She'd been running the beach house as a short-term rental, charging premium rates for beachfront access. Robert estimated, based on comparable properties and typical occupancy rates, that Jessica had likely generated between $350,000 and $400,000 in gross rental income over 3 years. After expenses for cleaning, maintenance, utilities, and platform fees, she'd probably netted around $280,000. Money that should have been mine. Money that could have paid for Elena's treatment. Money that could have saved me from financial ruin. "There's more," Robert said during our meeting. "I found another property." "What?" "Jessica and her husband Derek bought a vacation property in Lake Tahoe 18 months ago. $1.8 million. They put down $600,000 in cash. The timing was damning. 6 months after Elena died. Right when Jessica would have accumulated substantial rental income from my beach house. She'd used my money to buy her own vacation property. You absolutely need to hear what happens when I finally confront her. But first, please take a second to like this video and drop a comment telling me what you would do in my situation. Would you call the police? Would you forgive your child? Let me know below. I spent 3 days deciding what to do. Part of me wanted to call the police immediately. Part of me wanted to just cut Jessica out of my life and disappear. But another part of me, the father part, the part that still remembered teaching her to ride a bike and walking her down the aisle at her wedding, wanted to give her a chance to explain. So, I called her. "Hey, Dad," she answered, bright and cheerful. "How are you?" "I'm good," I lied. "Listen, I was hoping we could have dinner this weekend. Just the two of us. There's something I want to discuss." "Oh?" A hint of concern in her voice. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine. I just miss spending time with you. We haven't had a real conversation since the funeral." "You're right," she said, sounding relieved. "I'd love that." "Saturday night? Perfect. Let's meet at that Italian place your mom loved, Carlucci's." "Sounds great, Dad. I'll see you at 7. That Saturday. I arrived at the restaurant early. I wanted to be settled, composed, ready for whatever came next. Jessica arrived right on time, looking polished and professional in designer jeans and a silk blouse. She hugged me tight. "It's so good to see you, Dad," she said. "You look well." "Thanks, sweetheart. You too." We ordered drinks and made small talk about her work, Derek's latest business deal, and the weather. I was waiting for the right moment. It came after our entrees arrived. "So what did you want to talk about?" Jessica asked, twirling pasta on her fork. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the bank statement. I placed it on the table between us. "I wanted to talk about this." Jessica's face went pale. She stared at the statement like it was a snake. "Dad, I went to the beach house," I interrupted quietly. "I saw the renters. I saw the binder. I know everything, Jessica." Her mouth opened and closed. No words came out. "I know you never sold the house," I continued, my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "I know you've been running it as a rental property for 3 years. I know you pocketed hundreds of thousands of dollars that should have been mine. That should have paid for your mother's treatment." Tears started streaming down her face. "Dad, please let me explain." "Explain what?" My voice was rising now, despite my efforts to stay calm. "Explain how you lied to me while your mother was dying? Explain how you stole from your own father? Explain how you used my money to buy yourself a vacation home in Tahoe?" Other diners were starting to look at us. I didn't care. Jessica was openly sobbing now. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "How far did you mean for it to go?" She wiped her eyes with her napkin, mascara smearing. "It started as just a way to make some extra money. Derek's business was struggling, and we had debts. The beach house was just sitting there empty most of the time, and I thought we could rent it out occasionally, just to help make ends meet, while your mother was dying. I know how it sounds, but I was going to tell you about it. I was going to share the income, and then Mom got worse, and you were so stressed about money, and I thought I'd wait until she was gone. I didn't want to add to your burden, so instead you decided to steal from me." "It wasn't like that." She was practically pleading now. "And yes, I saw an opportunity, but I also genuinely thought I was helping you. The debts were real, Dad. You really were in financial trouble. So you paid off a fraction of my debts with my own money and kept the rest for yourself?" She didn't answer, just kept crying. "The Tahoe house, Jessica. You bought a $1.8 million vacation home with money you stole from me. Derek made some good investments," she said weakly. "That wasn't all from—" "Don't lie to me anymore." I slammed my hand on the table. The silverware jumped. "I've had a forensic accountant look at your finances. I know exactly where that down payment came from. That was a bluff. Robert hadn't done a full forensic analysis. But Jessica didn't know that." Her face crumpled. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet," I said honestly. "My attorney says what you did is fraud and elder abuse. He says I could press criminal charges." "Please don't," she whispered. "Please, Dad. I'll pay you back. I'll give you everything. Just please don't send me to prison. You used money that could have saved your mother for your own vacation home. Mom was going to die anyway." The words burst out of her, raw and desperate. "The cancer was stage 4. The treatments were just delaying the inevitable. You know that. The doctors told us that." I stood up. I couldn't sit there anymore. "You're right," I said quietly. "Your mother was going to die. But I would have traded every penny we had for one more month with her. One more week. One more day. You took that choice away from me. You stole that possibility. Dad, please. I need time to think. Don't contact me. I'll contact you when I've decided what to do." I walked out of the restaurant and left her crying at the table. This is where the story takes an unexpected turn that I never could have predicted. If you want to find out what happens next and how I handled this devastating betrayal, make sure you have subscribed and stay me till the end. This isn't over yet. For 2 weeks, I didn't speak to Jessica. She tried calling. She sent texts. Long, rambling apologies. Promises to make things right. Pleas for forgiveness. I ignored all of it. Instead, I worked with Robert to understand my options. He laid them out clearly. Option 1. Press criminal charges. Jessica would likely face fraud charges, potentially prison time, and definitely the end of her real estate career. I'd probably recover most of the stolen money through restitution and civil judgments. Option 2. Pursue civil action only. Sue her for the stolen funds plus damages. Avoid criminal prosecution, but still hold her financially accountable. Option 3. Demand private restitution. Make her pay back everything outside of the court system. Faster, less public, but harder to enforce if she refused to comply. Option 4. Walk away. Cut her out of my life completely and move on. I was leaning toward option 1. She deserved to face real consequences. But then I got a call from an unknown number. Mr. Castellano? This is Lisa Chen. I'm an attorney representing your daughter, Jessica. My jaw tightened. She lawyered up. She's concerned about potential legal action. Yes. But she's also genuinely remorseful and wants to make amends. She's asked me to propose a settlement. I'm listening. She's prepared to immediately transfer full ownership of the beach house back to you, free and clear. She'll also repay every dollar of rental income she collected, with 6% interest compounded annually. Based on our calculations, that's approximately $340,000. Additionally, she'll pay for all of your legal fees related to this matter. I did the math in my head. The beach house was worth at least $4.5 million now, maybe more. The rental repayment would be substantial. It was a significant offer. What does she want in return? No criminal charges, no public legal action. The settlement would be private and confidential. She wants to protect her reputation. She wants to make things right, without destroying her entire life, Mr. Castellano. She has a child on the way. Did she tell you that? I felt like I'd been punched. What? She's 12 weeks pregnant. She found out last week. A grandchild. I was going to be a grandfather. That changed things. Or did it? Should it? I need to think about this, I told Lisa. Of course. She's given me authorization to negotiate if you have counter demands. I hung up and sat in silence for a long time. A grandchild. That baby didn't ask for any of this. That baby was innocent. But Jessica wasn't. And what she'd done couldn't be erased by pregnancy news. I called Robert and told him about the offer. It's a strong offer financially, he said. You'd come out ahead. But Tom, you need to decide what you really want here. Is it about the money? Or is it about holding her accountable for what she did to you and Elena? I don't know, I admitted. Take your time. You don't have to decide today. That night, I did something I hadn't done in months. I drove to the cemetery where Elena was buried. I stood at her grave and talked to her like she could hear me. Maybe she could, maybe she couldn't, but I needed to say the words out loud. I don't know what to do, mi amor, I said in Spanish, the language we always spoke to each other in private. Our daughter betrayed us. Betrayed you. But she's pregnant. We're going to be abuelos. The wind rustled through the trees. I imagined it was Elena answering me. You always saw the best in people, I continued. Even when they disappointed you, you believed in second chances. But this feels like too much to forgive. I stayed there for an hour, talking to my dead wife, hoping for some kind of sign or clarity. It didn't come. But driving home, something occurred to me. Something Jessica had said at the restaurant. It started as just a way to make some extra money. Derek's business was struggling, and we had debts. Derek's business, their debts. Jessica had always been financially savvy, ambitious, but honest. At least, I'd thought she was honest. But Derek. I'd never fully trusted Derek. I'd met him 6 years ago, when Jessica brought him home for Thanksgiving. He was charming, polished, and successful. Or at least, he presented himself that way. But there was something performative about him, something that felt hollow. Elena had felt it too. After they left that Thanksgiving, she'd said to me, I hope Jessica knows what she's doing with that one. You don't like him? I'd asked. I don't trust him, she'd said. He's the kind of man who's more interested in appearing successful than actually being successful. At the time, I'd thought she was just being an overprotective mother. But Elena had good instincts about people. What if Derek had been the driving force behind this? What if he'd pressured Jessica, manipulated her, convinced her that taking money from her own father was somehow justified? It didn't excuse what Jessica had done. She was an adult. She'd made her own choices. But it might explain how a daughter who'd once been loving and honest had become someone capable of such calculated deception. I needed to know. The next day, I hired a private investigator. I know how that sounds. But I needed the full picture. If I was going to make a decision about Jessica's future, and by extension, my grandchild's future, I needed to understand everything. The PI's name was Williams, former LAPD detective, now running his own investigation firm. Robert recommended him. I need you to look into my son-in-law, I told Williams. Derek Castellano. I want to know everything about his business, his finances, his history. I want to know who he really is. Williams got to work. What he found was stunning. Derek wasn't just struggling financially. He was drowning. His private equity firm was essentially a shell game, constantly moving money around to create the appearance of success while actually hemorrhaging cash. He'd made several terrible investments that had gone south. He had personal debts exceeding $2 million, and here's where it got really interesting. Derek had a gambling problem, not just casual betting, serious, pathological gambling, high-stakes poker games, sports betting, online casino sites. Williams found evidence of hundreds of thousands of dollars in gambling losses over the past 5 years. Derek had been hiding this from Jessica, or at least hiding the extent of it. But about 4 years ago, right around when Jessica started renting out the beach house, Derek's debts had become unmanageable. He'd borrowed money from some very questionable people, the kind of people who don't accept "I'll pay you back eventually" as an answer. Williams showed me bank records, transaction histories, even surveillance photos from a poker game in a private club in Los Angeles where Derek had lost $85,000 in a single night. Your son-in-law is in deep, Williams said. The rental income from your beach house? I'd bet most of that money went straight to covering his debts and gambling losses. I felt sick. Not just anger anymore, but something worse. Pity, disgust. Jessica hadn't stolen from me to buy herself luxuries. She'd stolen from me to save her husband from the consequences of his own stupidity and addiction. The Tahoe house? We'd find that Derek had convinced Jessica it was a smart investment while really just needing a legitimate place to park some money that creditors couldn't easily touch. Does Jessica know about the gambling? I asked Williams. Hard to say. Women in these situations, sometimes they know, and they're in denial. Sometimes they genuinely don't know, because their husbands are good liars. But based on what I've seen, I guess she at least suspects something's wrong. I thanked Williams and paid him. Then I sat with this new information for several days. This changed the calculation. Jessica wasn't just a greedy daughter who stole from her father. She was a desperate woman, trying to save her husband from his own demons, using the only asset she had access to, my property. It didn't make what she did right, but it made it more complicated. I decided to meet with her. But on my terms this time. I texted her. We need to talk. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the beach house. Just you. No Derek. No lawyers. She responded immediately. I'll be there. Thank you, Dad. The next day, I drove to Carlsbad. The renters were gone. I'd made sure of that by checking the rental calendar on the VRBO listing. The house was empty. I let myself in with my key and waited. Jessica arrived exactly on time. She looked terrible, exhausted, pale, dark circles under her eyes, pregnant and stressed. She stood in the doorway of what used to be our family home and started crying before she even spoke. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Come in, I said quietly. Sit down. We sat in the living room, in the generic rental furniture that had replaced Elena's carefully chosen pieces. I know about Derek, I said. Her face went white. What do you know? Everything. The gambling. The debts. The people he owes money to. She closed her eyes, and fresh tears leaked out. He promised me he'd stopped. He promised me the poker games were just social. Just networking. But it kept getting worse. How long have you known? I figured it out about a year after we got married. I found a credit card statement he'd hidden. 20,000 in cash advances. When I confronted him, he broke down. Told me he had a problem. Swore he'd get help. Did he? He went to 2 Gamblers Anonymous meetings and then stopped going. Said he didn't need it, that he could quit on his own. She laughed bitterly. I was so stupid to believe him. Why didn't you leave? I loved him. I still love him. And I thought I could save him. I thought if I could just solve the money problems, give him space to breathe, he'd stop. He'd get better. So you started renting out my house. She nodded miserably. At first, it was just going to be for a few months. Just enough to cover the most urgent debts. But then, there were more debts. And more. And the rental income was good. And I thought I was handling it. And when Mom died, Jessica's face crumpled. I knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew I should tell you. But then, Mom died. And you were a mess. And I panicked. I thought if I told you about the rentals, you'd hate me. You'd cut me off. And I needed that rental income to keep Derek's creditors away. So you lied to me. You made me think the house was sold. You took money that should have been mine and used it to cover your husband's gambling debts. Yes. She was sobbing now. Yes, I did. And I hate myself for it. Every single day, I hate myself for it. We sat in silence for a long moment. Are you going to leave him? I finally asked. She put a hand on her stomach, protective. I don't know. He's the father of my baby. He's an addict, Jessica. And unless he gets serious help, this won't stop. He'll drain you dry. He'll put you and that child in danger. I know, she whispered. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the ocean. The view that Elena had loved so much. I've been thinking about what to do, I said, without turning around. Part of me wants to see you in prison. Part of me wants to never speak to you again. I understand. But another part of me remembers who you used to be. The little girl who used to build sandcastles right out there. The daughter who held my hand at her mother's funeral. And I wonder if that person is still there somewhere. I turned back to face her. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to accept your lawyer's settlement offer. You're going to give me back the house. You're going to repay every penny you took, with interest. And you're going to pay my legal fees. Yes, of course, anything. I'm not finished. You're also going to leave Derek. Her eyes widened. Dad, I'm not negotiating this, Jessica. Derek is a cancer in your life. He's the reason you destroyed our relationship. He's the reason you betrayed your own father. And if you stay with him, he's going to destroy that child too. But the baby needs a father. The baby needs a mother who isn't drowning in her husband's debts. The baby needs a mother who doesn't have to steal from her own family to survive. The baby needs you to be strong enough to walk away. Jessica was crying so hard she could barely breathe. If you leave Derek and commit to rebuilding your life, honestly this time, I'll help you. I continued. I'll help you raise that baby. I'll be a grandfather. I'll forgive you, eventually. But if you stay with him... That's not fair, she choked out. You can't make me choose between you and my husband. I'm not making you choose. You already chose, when you decided to steal from me to cover his debts. I'm just telling you the consequences of that choice. You can't have both. You can have Derek and his gambling, and his lies, and his debts. Or you can have me and a fresh start and a relationship with your father. But not both. She sat there, hands on her pregnant belly, sobbing. I need time to think, she finally said. You have 1 week? I told her. After that, I'm accepting or rejecting the settlement. And if I reject it, I'm pressing criminal charges. Your lawyer can explain what that means for your real estate license, your career, your future. I walked to the door and paused. I loved you before you were even born, I said quietly. Your mother and I tried for 4 years to have a baby. When you finally came, you were our miracle. I want to love you again, Jessica. I want to be a grandfather to that baby. But I won't enable you to destroy yourself, the way you've watched Derek destroy himself. I left her there in the beach house, crying on the rental furniture. What happened next completely changed everything, and I promise you won't see this coming. Stay with me just a little longer, and please, if you're finding this story valuable, hit that subscribe button and leave a comment. I read every single one. 5 days later, Jessica showed up at my house. She looked different, determined, somehow, stronger. Can I come in? She asked. I let her in. We sat in my kitchen. I left him, she said. I felt my chest tighten. You did? 2 days ago. I packed a bag and moved into a hotel. I told Derek I want a divorce. How did he react? Badly. She showed me her wrist. There was a bruise there, finger-shaped. He grabbed me when I tried to leave. Not hard enough to really hurt me, but it scared me. I've never seen him like that. I felt rage surge through me. Did you call the police? No. I just left. I should have called them, but I was scared and I just wanted to get out. You're filing a police report today, I said firmly. And you're getting a restraining order. She nodded. Okay. Where are you staying? Extended stay in Oceanside. It's not much, but it's safe. You're not staying in a hotel. You're staying here. Dad, I can't. You're pregnant. You're my daughter. You're staying here until we figure this out. She started crying again, but different this time. Relief, maybe. Thank you. We're going to your hotel right now to get your things. Then we're going to the police station. Then we're meeting with my lawyer to finalize the settlement. And tomorrow, you're calling a divorce attorney. Understood? Yes, we did exactly that. The police report was filed. A restraining order was issued. Derek was ordered to stay at least 500 yards away from Jessica. The settlement was formalized. The beach house was transferred back into my name. Jessica set up a payment plan to repay the $340,000 in stolen rental income plus interest over the next 5 years. It would be tight for her, but doable. My attorney also helped her find a good divorce lawyer. Over the next few weeks, Jessica lived in my guest room. We had long conversations. Some of them were painful. She had to own what she'd done. Repeatedly. I had to work through my anger and hurt, but slowly, we started to rebuild something. She told me things she'd never told me before. How Derek had been controlling, isolating her from friends. How he'd convinced her that his financial problems were her responsibility to solve. How he'd made her feel like she was never doing enough, never being enough. It was textbook financial abuse, combined with emotional manipulation, and I'd missed all the signs. I should have seen it, I said one night over dinner. I should have known something was wrong. You couldn't have known, Jessica said. I worked really hard to hide it. I was ashamed, and I didn't even realize how bad it was until I was drowning. The divorce proceedings were ugly. Derek fought everything. He wanted spousal support. He wanted half of Jessica's assets. He wanted joint custody of the baby when it was born. But with the documented gambling problem, the restraining order, and the evidence of financial misconduct, Jessica's lawyer tore him apart. The final settlement gave Jessica full custody, no spousal support in either direction, and a clean break. Derek got to keep his failing business and his debts. Good riddance. Throughout all of this, something unexpected happened. Jessica and I grew close again. Not the way we'd been before, that innocent trust was gone. But we built something new. Something more honest. She started therapy, real therapy, twice a week, to work through the trauma of her marriage and the guilt of what she'd done to me. And I started therapy too. To work through my grief over Elena, my anger at Jessica, and my own role in missing the warning signs. One evening, about 4 months after Jessica had left Derek, We were sitting on my back patio. She was visibly pregnant now, almost 6 months along. I felt the baby kick today, she said, smiling. Want to feel? I put my hand on her belly and felt a tiny thump. My grandchild. Elena's grandchild. We're going to name her Elena, Jessica said softly. If that's okay with you. I couldn't speak. I just nodded and let the tears come. I want her to know who her grandmother was, Jessica continued. I want her to know about the beach house and the summers we spent there. I want her to know all the good things before I ruined them. You didn't ruin everything, I said. You made terrible choices. You hurt me badly, but you're also making things right. That counts for something. Do you think Mom would forgive me? I thought about that. Your mother believed people were capable of change. She believed in redemption. So yes, I think she would forgive you. Eventually. Just like I'm forgiving you. Eventually. Jessica smiled through her tears. Eventually is enough. But here's where the story takes its final, unexpected turn. Remember that second beach house I mentioned? The one Jessica and Derek bought in Lake Tahoe? During the divorce proceedings, that property was a major point of contention. Derek claimed it was his investment, purchased with his business earnings. Jessica claimed it was purchased with marital assets that included stolen rental income from my property. The court ordered a full accounting of where the down payment had come from. That's when we discovered something neither Jessica nor I had known. The Tahoe property wasn't purchased with rental income from my beach house. It was purchased with money from a life insurance policy on Elena. A policy that I didn't know existed. Elena had taken out a $500,000 life insurance policy 3 years before she died. She'd named Jessica as the sole beneficiary. She'd never told me about it. When Elena passed away, the insurance company paid out the full amount to Jessica. Jessica had received that money right around the time she and Derek bought the Tahoe house. But Jessica swore she didn't use the insurance money for the down payment. She said she'd put that money into a separate account, untouched, because it felt sacred, money her mother had left her. So, where did the down payment come from? Derek. Somehow, Derek had accessed that insurance account without Jessica's knowledge and used it for the down payment. It took weeks of forensic accounting to piece together exactly what had happened, but here's what we learned. Derek had convinced Jessica to make him a joint account holder on the insurance money account for safety. Then, without telling her, he'd transferred $400,000 to a business account he controlled. He'd used that money to make the down payment on the Tahoe house, which he'd put solely in his name. Then he'd convinced Jessica that they'd purchase the house together, using his business earnings and a small contribution from her. She'd believed him. So when Jessica had been desperately stealing rental income from my beach house to cover Derek's debts, the entire time there was $400,000 of Elena's life insurance money that Derek had already stolen and hidden from her. When we confronted Derek with this during a deposition, he claimed he'd planned to tell Jessica eventually. He claimed it was a strategic financial move. He claimed he'd done it to protect the money from being seized by creditors, but the truth was clear. Derek had stolen his wife's inheritance from her dead mother and used it to buy himself a vacation home. Jessica was devastated when she learned this. Not just because of the money, but because that insurance policy had been Elena's final gift to her, her mother's way of making sure she'd be okay, and Derek had taken it. The court ruled that the Tahoe property had been purchased with marital assets obtained through fraud. It ordered the house to be sold and the proceeds to go entirely to Jessica. The Tahoe house sold for $2.1 million. After paying off the mortgage and fees, Jessica netted $1.4 million. She used $340,000 of that to immediately repay me everything she owed for the stolen rental income. She put another $500,000 into a trust for baby Elena, and she used the rest to buy herself a small condo near my house in San Diego and start over. Derek, meanwhile, filed for bankruptcy. His business collapsed. Last I heard, he'd moved back to Ohio to live with his parents. I don't waste energy hating him anymore. He's just a sad, broken man who destroyed everything good in his life because he couldn't control his demons. Baby Elena, was born on a sunny morning in March. 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Perfect. I was in the delivery room. I cut the cord. I held my granddaughter for the first time and felt a piece of Elena come back to me. Jessica is a good mother. She's working part-time in real estate again, legitimately this time, and spending the rest of her time with Elena. We have dinner together twice a week. Jessica and baby Elena stay over at my house most weekends. And sometimes, on Sunday mornings, the three of us drive up to the beach house in Carlsbad. I never rented it out again. I keep it for us now. For my family. We spend weekends there, just like Jessica and her mother and I used to do all those years ago. I teach baby Elena about the ocean, just like I taught her mother. She's only 8 months old, but she loves the sound of the waves. Jessica and I have never fully returned to what we were before. There's still a scar there. Still moments of pain and memory. But we've built something new, something harder won, and maybe more valuable. She's not the daughter I raised. She's someone who made terrible mistakes and hurt me deeply. But she's also someone who found the courage to leave a destructive relationship, to take responsibility for her actions, and to rebuild her life for her daughter. And I'm not the same father I was before. I'm more cautious now, more aware of the ways people can deceive you, even people you love. But I'm also more grateful for the second chances we get in life. More aware of how precious time with family really is. Last Sunday, Jessica and I were sitting on the deck of the beach house while baby Elena napped. The sun was setting over the Pacific, painting the sky in oranges and purples. "Do you think Mom knows?" Jessica asked quietly. "About all of this? About what happened?" I thought about that. I think if there's anything after death, any way for her to know, then yes. She knows. And she's relieved it worked out. Do you think she's disappointed in me? I think she's disappointed in the choices you made. But I think she's proud of who you're becoming, just like I am. Jessica leaned her head on my shoulder. "I love you, Dad. And I'm sorry. I know I've said it before, but I need to keep saying it. I know. And I love you too." We sat there as the sun sank into the ocean, in the house that had almost destroyed us, but instead became the place where we learned to rebuild. That night, after Jessica and baby Elena had gone to bed in the master bedroom, I walked down to the beach alone. I stood at the water's edge and talked to Elena, like I always do. "We made it through, mi amor," I said in Spanish. "It was close, but we made it through. Mi amor." The waves rolled in and out, eternal and unchanging. "Thank you for the life insurance," I continued. "You always were thinking ahead, taking care of us. Even from beyond the grave." A shooting star streaked across the sky. I chose to believe it was Elena's way of answering. I walked back to the house, where my daughter and granddaughter were sleeping peacefully. The beach house at 2247 Pacific Coast Highway wasn't just a property anymore. It wasn't just an asset or an investment. It was the place where my family fell apart and came back together, where we learned that love can survive betrayal, but only if both sides are willing to do the hard work of rebuilding trust, where we learned that second chances are possible, but they're never easy, and where we learned that sometimes the things that almost destroy us are the very things that make us stronger. I locked the door, turned off the lights, and went to bed in the guest room. Tomorrow, I'd make pancakes for Jessica and play with baby Elena on the beach. We'd laugh and tell stories and pretend, for a little while, that the painful parts never happened. But they did happen, and we survived them. And that's the real story. Not that my daughter demanded our beach house and I gave it to her, but that she stole it. I caught her, and together we found our way back to something that looks like family. It's not the ending I would have chosen, but it's the ending we earned. And somehow, that makes it more valuable than any inheritance or property or amount of money ever could be. If this story moved you, please like and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need to hear it. And remember, family is complicated. Forgiveness is hard, but second chances are worth fighting for. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.